Black woman CEO dragged away from her flight. Then the speakers announced her as the pilot. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Security, she's impersonating crew. The words cracked through the terminal like a gunshot. Gate GC 710, London Heathrow. The crowd turned. Phones lifted. Chairs scraped. At the center of the chaos stood a woman in a brown leather jacket, crisp white shirt, and a black tie slightly loosened at the collar. Her name was Aisha Carter, but no one knew that yet. Two airport officers charged forward, voices hard, uniforms shining under the sterile lights. Behind them, a woman in a bright orange suit pointed accusingly. Her tone was coated with authority and venom. "You're not supposed to be here. This area's restricted." Aisha didn't move, her eyes steady, her breath calm, her hand still clutching her boarding pass. Around her, the terminal hummed with judgment whispers, side glances, camera clicks. One of the officers grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, step aside." Aisha's voice stayed low. "I am supposed to be here," the woman in orange scoffed. "Oh, really? Dressed like that?" The officer tightened his grip. The second one shouted over the noise. "You have identification? Or are we going to do this the hard way?" Aisha met his eyes. There was no fear there, only a quiet warning. But no one in that moment could hear it beneath the sound of prejudice dressed as protocol. The woman in orange pressed closer, her perfume mixing with the sterile airport air. "Don't play games. You're not staff. You're trespassing." Aisha turned slightly, her badge chain glinting beneath the collar unnoticed. Someone from the waiting seats whispered, "She's not resisting." Another replied, "Then why are they shouting?" The crowd had grown, phones up, record buttons blinking red. A mother covered her child's eyes. A businessman muttered, "She should have known better." The officer's voice rose again. "Last chance, who are you?" Aisha's answer was calm, almost too calm for the tension pressing against her. "You'll find out soon enough." The woman in orange laughed sharply. "Is that a threat?" Aisha looked at her and said nothing. Silence was her defense and her weapon. The officer tugged her arm. She didn't resist. The boarding pass slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the polished floor. No one saw what was printed on it yet. Captain A. Carter, Flight GC 710. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Aisha. The officer started to pull her away, and the woman in orange stepped aside with satisfaction written all over her face. The terminal fell into a stunned silence that felt louder than the shouting before. Something in the air had shifted, but they didn't know it yet. Because in less than 10 minutes, every single person watching would learn who she truly was. The officers held her by the arms now, guiding her away from Gate GC 710. The crowd parted, some whispering, some recording, no one stepping in. The woman in the orange suit followed close behind, her voice slicing through the noise. "This is what happens when you let anyone wander near a cockpit." Aisha didn't look back. Her jaw tightened once, just once, then relaxed again. She'd learned long ago that silence unsettled people more than shouting ever could. As the officers led her past the waiting seats, a memory pressed against her chest, one that smelled of jet fuel and rain. She was 23, standing outside a training hangar in Atlanta. A rookie in a pressed uniform, eager and nervous. When she approached the flight deck that day, a senior pilot stopped her at the door. "The catering staff enters from the back," he'd said without looking up. She remembered the sting in her throat, the way her ID suddenly felt invisible. She hadn't argued then either. She'd simply stepped back, waited until the briefing began, and entered later, through the front, right after being announced as the new trainee co-pilot. The same man never met her eyes again. Now, years later, the same chill crept into her skin, the same script repeating, only louder. "Ma'am, we need to see identification," one of the officers said, tone stiff but unsure. Aisha reached into her inside pocket and handed over a slim black ID card. The officer turned it in his hand, brow furrowing. "This looks different." The woman in orange snatched it. "Different means fake. She printed this somewhere." The words carried passengers murmured. A few gasped. A child in a blue hoodie whispered, "Mom, She looks like a pilot. His mother pulled him close. Shh. Aisha exhaled slowly. You're making a mistake. The officer hesitated. The woman in orange didn't. Enough. Escort her out. I'll file the report myself. Phones rose higher. The sound of filming filled the air, the new silence of public judgment. Aisha's voice dropped. Steady. Controlled. Call it in. Verify Flight GC 710 crew manifest. You'll find my name. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. The woman in orange folded her arms. Oh, please, we don't have time for games. Oh. Behind them, a flight attendant paused mid-checklist, glancing toward the commotion. Something flickered in her eyes' recognition. She'd seen that name before. She opened her mouth but stopped, fear of her supervisor sealing her lips. The officers began walking again. Aisha didn't resist. Her steps were measured, her gaze forward. This could have been simple, the woman in orange said, half triumphant. Aisha turned her head slightly, her tone soft but unshaken. Simple doesn't always mean right. The woman scoffed. Spare me the attitude. One of the officers' radios crackled. A voice came through, faint, distorted. Control to gate security. Confirm current escort? Passenger name? He pressed the receiver. Aisha Carter. Possible impersonation case. Silence. Then, static followed by something no one expected. Say again, Captain Carter? The officer froze mid-step. The woman in orange blinked, confusion replacing certainty. Aisha looked up, eyes calm, as if she'd been waiting for that voice all along. Yes, she said quietly. That's the one. The hallway toward the security office was bright and sterile, that kind of hospital white that made everything feel louder. Each step echoed against the tile. The officers said nothing now. Even the woman in orange had gone quiet, the edge in her voice softening into uncertainty. Then it happened. A sound rolled through the terminal crisp, official, impossible to ignore. Final boarding call for Flight GC 710 to New York. Captain Aisha Carter, please proceed to the cockpit. The words cut through the air like a bell. Every head turned. The noise of the terminal collapsed into a single stunned hush. The officer holding her arm stopped walking. His grip loosened. The woman in orange froze mid-breath. Someone whispered, "Did she just say Captain?" Aisha looked up at the ceiling speakers, a faint trace of knowing in her eyes. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The announcement repeated, "Captain Aisha Carter, your flight crew is waiting." Phones that had been recording now tilted down, catching only shocked faces. The officer glanced at the ID again, his pulse visible in his neck. "Ma'am, you're the captain?" Aisha answered softly. "I told you. I belong here." The woman in orange stammered, voice trembling as she tried to recover her authority. That can't be right. There must be some mistake." Aisha turned to her, tone even but firm. "The only mistake was yours." Passengers nearby had stopped pretending not to watch. One man in a gray suit muttered, "Oh my God." A younger woman lifted her phone again, not to accuse this time, but to document justice unfolding. The officer stepped back, clearing his throat. "Captain, we weren't informed." "You didn't need to be," Aisha said. "You just needed to look." Her boarding pass still lay on the floor back at the gate, the one with Captain A. Carter printed in black ink. A child pointed it out to his mother. She dropped her ticket. The mother bent down, picked it up, read the name, and her eyes widened. The ripple began there, disbelief turning into realization, realization into shame. The woman in orange's face flushed red. I was only doing my job." Aisha's voice stayed low, measured. "Your job isn't to humiliate people. It's to verify facts before you act." She took a slow step forward. The officers moved aside instinctively, giving her space they should have offered long ago. "Now," she said, adjusting her jacket, "if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to command." As she walked back toward gate GC 710, the crowd shifted, phones raised again, this time in awe. A few clapped quietly, others just watched, speechless. The loudspeaker came alive once more, sealing the moment. "Captain Carter, crew ready for takeoff." Her footsteps echoed across the marble floor, calm, deliberate, absolute. Behind her, the officers stood frozen. The woman in orange lowered her head. And for the first time that morning, the terminal was completely still. The walk back to gate GC 710 felt longer than before, not because of distance, but because every step rewrote what the crowd had just witnessed. Moments ago, she was the problem. Now, she was Captain Carter. Phones followed her like a quiet storm. People parted instinctively, a tide of shame and curiosity. The woman in orange trailed a few steps behind, face pale, trying to shrink from every lens now turned on her. Aisha stopped beside the boarding counter. The same agent who had watched the scene unfold stood frozen, headset tilted awkwardly. He swallowed hard. "Captain, I didn't know." She adjusted her cuffs, voice even. "You didn't need to know who I was. You only needed to know how to treat people." The gate agents looked down. No one dared move. Behind the glass, the jet bridge stretched like a silver tunnel waiting for her. Crew members peeked from the doorway, a co-pilot, two attendants. Their expressions said everything. Confusion, embarrassment, awe. Aisha picked up the fallen boarding pass from the counter, smoothed it once, and tucked it back into her jacket pocket. Her tone softened, but the weight in it remained. "Reset boarding for GC 710. We're leaving in 15. The male agent hesitated. "Should we inform security control?" "They already know," she said. The woman in orange finally spoke, her voice cracking. "Captain Carter, I truly didn't mean..." Aisha turned just enough to meet her eyes. "You meant every word when you said them. The apology only comes now because everyone's watching." A pause hung heavy between them. Then Aisha continued, quieter, "Take this moment and do better with it, that's all." The woman's mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Aisha stepped forward, through the gate doors. The automatic sensors hissed as they opened a clean, mechanical sound, but to everyone listening, it felt symbolic. Inside the jet bridge, the air shifted from chaos to calm. A flight attendant straightened instantly. "Captain on deck." Her co-pilot stood at attention, guilt shadowing his face. "We didn't realize they'd stopped you outside. Are you okay?" Aisha nodded once. "I'm fine, but make sure our passengers are too. They just saw something we'll be talking about for a long time." He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders breaking. "Yes, ma'am." She paused at the threshold of the cockpit, her space, her command. One more look back through the narrow window revealed the crowd still gathered near the gate, silent, some recording, some clapping quietly. The woman in orange was now being questioned by airport supervisors. The same microphones that once amplified her accusation now picked up nothing but apologies. Aisha turned to her crew, tone composed. "Pre-flight checks, standard procedure. Let's get this flight home." As she stepped into the cockpit, sunlight spilled across the panels, catching the gold bars on her shoulders. For a brief moment, the noise of the terminal faded behind her, replaced by the steady hum of engines coming alive. She took her seat, strapped in, and whispered to herself. This time, they saw it happen. The cockpit door closed with a muted click, sealing the world outside. For the first time that morning, Aisha exhaled, slow, measured, deliberate. The hum of the engines filled the quiet, a low thunder beneath her fingertips. Her co-pilot glanced over, still uneasy. "Ground control cleared us, Captain. We're good to taxi." Aisha nodded. Her hands moved across the switches with practiced precision, calm as a tide. Outside, the jet bridge pulled away. A dozen faces pressed against the terminal windows, passengers, crew, even strangers who had watched everything unfold. In row 14 amperes, a woman held her phone, still recording. Her caption read, "They dragged her away. Turns out she's the pilot." The clip was already spreading likes, comments, disbelief flooding the feed. A little boy 2 rows back tugged his mother's sleeve. "Mom, that's her, right? The lady they yelled at?" His mother nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "Yes, baby. And now she's flying us home." The plane eased onto the runway. Inside the cockpit, Aisha adjusted the throttle, voice steady over comm. "Flight GC 710 cleared for takeoff." The tower replied, "Copy that, Captain Carter. Safe travels." The words carried more weight than protocol ever intended. As the plane surged forward, the cabin pressed into silence, that brief stillness between ground and sky when gravity decides whether to let go. Aisha's grip was steady. Her mind wasn't on the cameras or the headlines that would follow. It was on every moment that had tried to make her smaller and every choice that had proven otherwise. Through the windshield, the horizon widened. London shrank into a patchwork of silver and cloud. Her co-pilot broke the quiet. "I've flown with you for 3 years, but I don't think I've ever been prouder to sit in this seat." Aisha's eyes stayed on the sky. "Don't be proud of me. Be proud that we're still changing what it means to lead." At 30,000 feet, the seatbelt sign blinked off. The intercom light glowed. Aisha hesitated for a second, then pressed the switch. "Good afternoon, passengers. This is Captain Carter speaking. I know today started differently than most flights, but I want you to know you're safe, and we're exactly where we're supposed to be." The cabin erupted in quiet applause. Not loud, not forced, just genuine. In the terminal far below, a supervisor handed the woman in orange a formal complaint form. Her hands trembled as she signed it. Somewhere above, the plane she'd tried to stop was already crossing the clouds. Back in the sky, Aisha leaned back in her seat. The hum of the engines steadied her heartbeat. Below the horizon, sunlight caught the wings, two streaks of gold cutting through gray. For once, silence didn't feel like submission. It felt like justice cruising at altitude. Clouds broke apart as the city of New York came into view, bridges glinting, skyline cutting the dawn haze. Aisha guided the plane through descent, the rhythm of her voice calm, steady, precise. Flaps 30, landing checklist complete. Her co-pilot confirmed the final sequence, eyes still heavy with respect. Down below, sunlight spilled across the runway like a welcome she had earned 1,000 times but never received. When the wheels kissed the tarmac, the cabin erupted not in cheers, but in something quieter. Relief, pride, reverence. The woman in 14 amperes lowered her phone, turned to the stranger beside her, and said, "That's her. She just landed the plane they tried to take her off of." Applause rippled like a wave starting from the back. It wasn't loud. It was deliberate. Each clap sounded like an apology from the world. Aisha powered down the engines, radioing calmly. "Flight GC 710 cleared to gate." Control tower replied, "Welcome home, Captain Carter." 2 words, "welcome home," and her throat tightened, not from emotion, but from memory. Years ago, when she first applied to flight school, a recruiter had told her she was too bold for the cockpit. Now, her name was echoing across terminals on both sides of the ocean. As passengers disembarked, several paused by the cockpit door. A young woman with braids and tear-streaked cheeks whispered, "Thank you for flying us today. My little sister wants to be a pilot. I showed her what they did to you. Aisha met her chaze. Then show her how I finished the flight." Another passenger, the child from earlier, peeked around his mother's coat. "You're the captain?" Aisha smiled faintly. "Always have been." The boy grinned. "Cool. The mother mouthed a quiet thank you before stepping into the jet bridge. Outside, the gate was flooded with reporters and flashes. Microphones pointed like weapons disguised as flowers. "Captain Carter, what happened in London? Do you plan to press charges? Can we get a statement?" Aisha kept walking. Her sunglasses reflected the swarm, their questions bouncing off the glass, unanswered. A supervisor from her airline caught up beside her, voice low. "PR wants you to speak. The footage is already viral." Aisha adjusted her blazer, still moving forward. "Let them watch the footage, it says everything." Outside the terminal doors, the morning light poured over the runway. The noise behind her faded into distance. She paused for a moment, letting the air hit her face, not triumphant, not vengeful, just present. Then her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant, Nia. "Whole world's talking, boss. Number Captain Carter is trending." Aisha, "Good. Let them. But remind them, dignity isn't a headline." She slipped the phone back into her pocket and looked out over the parked jets lined against the horizon, quiet giants waiting for command. The ground crew waved as she passed. Someone called out, "Respect, Captain." She raised a hand in acknowledgement. Nothing more. Because justice, when it's real, doesn't need a speech. It just needs to land. 3 days later, the footage had crossed oceans. 40 million views. Hashtags stacked like headlines. Number Captain Carter. Number Flying While Black. Number She Owns the Sky. In the boardroom of Horizon Air Group, the glass walls reflected a skyline soaked in morning light. Executives sat in silence, suits, ties, and nervous glances. At the far end of the table stood Aisha Carter. No uniform now, just a black blazer and quiet authority. A giant screen replayed the first 30 seconds of the viral clip. The woman in orange screaming. The officers grabbing her arm. Then the loudspeaker, "Captain Aisha Carter, please proceed to the cockpit." The video froze on Aisha's face, calm, unreadable. No one spoke for a moment. The silence in the room wasn't awkward. It was accountability. Finally, the chairman cleared his throat. "Captain Carter, we've launched a full review. The airport issued an apology. The staff involved have been suspended. We'd like you to make a statement." Aisha looked at him evenly. "You want a statement because the world is watching. But where was this urgency before they pressed record?" The room shifted. Someone exhaled too loudly. A PR director adjusted her glasses. Captain, this could be an opportunity to... Aisha cut her off, calm but absolute. To turn it into a campaign? A slogan? No, this isn't about trending. It's about trust. She stepped closer to the screen, gesturing at the frozen image of herself being pulled away. That woman didn't just represent me. She represented every pilot, every crew member who's ever been questioned first and verified later. Her words landed like slow thunder. The chairman leaned forward. What do you want us to do? Aisha looked out through the glass wall planes lifting into the sky beyond. I don't want a press tour. I want change on the ground. She turned back to them, voice firm. Effective immediately, Horizon will expand its pilot training scholarships to include women of color. And I'll personally oversee recruitment for the next 3 cadets. They'll fly by summer. The HR director blinked. 3 new pilots? That's fast. Aisha smiled slightly. So was the accusation. No one replied. The silence was the only answer that made sense. Then she added, quieter. We can't control what people see in a headline, but we can control what they experience when they fly with us. The chairman nodded slowly, humbled. Consider it done, Captain. Aisha closed her tablet, her voice softening. Good. Because leadership isn't just about altitude, it's about who gets to rise next. As she walked out, the PR director whispered, What will you tell the press? Aisha paused at the door. Nothing. The sky will speak for me. Outside, the corridor opened into sunlight. Through the window, 3 trainee pilots, all young, all women, one wearing her hair in braids, watched her pass. They straightened instinctively. Aisha gave them a nod, a silent promise. Your turn is coming. And somewhere deep in the terminal, an announcement played for another departing flight. Now boarding Horizon Flight 212. Captain Carter, supervising. The voice echoed down the hallway not as a reminder of what happened, but as proof of what changed. The conference room was smaller than the one in headquarters. No skyline view this time, just plain walls and the hum of fluorescent lights. Aisha didn't need the view anymore. She had perspective. Across the table sat the woman in the orange suit, Margaret Hale, former Heathrow operations manager. The same woman who had pointed, shouted, and ordered her removal. Now she looked smaller, her posture careful, her voice barely above a whisper. A corporate investigator sat between them, tapping notes onto a tablet. Miss Hale, Captain Carter has agreed to attend this review at your request. You may begin. Margaret clasped her hands. Captain, I know saying I'm sorry isn't enough. I misjudged you. I let fear and assumption decide how I acted. Aisha watched her closely. No anger, no satisfaction, just listening. Margaret continued, her voice cracking. That day, I thought I was protecting passengers. I told myself it was about security. But truthfully, it was about control, and the way I was raised to see authority. You didn't fit that image, so I tried to erase it. The room went still. Even the investigator looked up, startled by the honesty. Aisha leaned forward, elbows on the table, hands folded. You're right. You tried to erase it. But it's not me you erased, it's the space we all share when respect leaves the room. Margaret blinked fast, eyes wet. I've lost my position, my career. But what I keep thinking about is that little boy at the gate, the one who saw me yelling at you. What did that teach him? Aisha's expression softened. That's what you can change. Teach him something different next time. Margaret swallowed hard. How? After all this, who'd listen to me? Aisha paused long enough for the words to matter. Start by listening to the people you never did. It's quieter work, but it lasts longer. Silent. Then the investigator closed her tablet gently. Meeting concluded. Margaret rose slowly. Captain Carter, thank you for agreeing to see me. Aisha stood too, smoothing her jacket. Accountability isn't just about punishment, Miss Hale. It's about participation. Margaret hesitated. Would you ever forgive me? Aisha met her eyes, not cold, not warm, just true. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. It's yours to earn. She turned toward the door. As she left, Margaret caught sight of the reflection in the glass, her own face beside Aisha's retreating silhouette. One broken by guilt, the other carried by purpose. Outside the room, Nia was waiting with a tablet. Press wants a quote, boss. Aisha shook her head. No statement. Just send the new training schedule. I want Hale's old department to see who's joining next month. Nia smiled. The 3 cadets? Yes. Let them witness progress, not press releases. As they walked down the hall, Aisha glanced through the window. The runway glowed under afternoon Sunday. One plane lifted, cutting through light. She murmured, almost to herself, justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just consistent. The hangar shimmered with late afternoon light, that golden hour glow that makes steel look alive. Rows of folding chairs faced a small stage draped with Horizon Air's Navy banner. In the front row sat families, friends, and a few quiet legends of aviation who had come to witness something history hadn't offered them before. 3 young women stood side by side on stage, uniforms crisp, caps tucked under their arms, eyes bright with the kind of fear that looks a lot like pride. The first was Danielle Brooks, 26, a former mechanic. The second, Lena Okafor, Nigerian-born, raised in Houston, first in her family to graduate college. And the third, Maya Torres, a single mother who'd spent 10 years as a flight attendant before earning her pilot wings. Aisha watched from the wings of the stage, heart steady. It wasn't nerves, it was gravity. Every step these women took was built on the one she had refused to step back from. The MC's voice echoed through the hangar. Please welcome Captain Aisha Carter, head of training and flight operations. Applause filled the air, soft at first, then swelling. Aisha walked onto the stage, uniform sharp gold bars gleaming. She paused before the 3 cadets, studying each face like a reflection of her own journey. You don't just carry wings today, she began, voice clear. You carry every no that tried to stop you and every yes that brought you here anyway. The audience leaned in, listening. Flying isn't just about altitude. It's about attitude, how high you choose to rise when someone tries to keep you grounded. She lifted the first pin gold wings, polished and ready. One by one, she placed them on each uniform. When she reached Maya, the oldest of the 3, she whispered so only she could hear. Make sure your daughter sees this. Maya's eyes glistened. She's in the front row, Aisha smiled. Then let her remember the sound of this moment. As she stepped back, the crowd rose to their feet, applause rolling like wind through metal. It wasn't celebration alone. It was correction. It was what justice sounded like when it finally found harmony. At the edge of the hangar, reporters filmed quietly, this time by invitation, but Aisha didn't look at them. Her gaze stayed on the runway outside, where a jet waited in the golden light, engines idle, ready. She turned to the 3 new pilot. That one's yours. Take her up. The sky's not crowded, just underused. The women exchanged nervous smiles, then saluted. As they walked toward the aircraft, the applause didn't fade. It deepened. Parents cried. Mechanics whistled. One of the old captains wiped his eyes and muttered, "About damn time." Aisha remained still until the plane's door closed, and the engines began to whine. She lifted her hand in a slow salute. Through the hangar windows, the jet rolled forward, picking up speed, until it rose clean into the orange sky. Its shadow stretched long across the tarmac, touching her boots, then passing on. Aisha whispered under her breath, "Your turn." And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to smile, not the kind born from victory, but from continuity, the kind that meant the work was working. The studio lights were bright, too polished, too still, the kind that made even honesty look rehearsed. Aisha sat opposite the host on Morning View, the nation's highest-rated talk show. Her uniform jacket was off today, replaced with a charcoal suit. The gold wings still glimmered on her lapel, catching every camera angle. The host smiled, professional, warm, and curious the way journalists do when they know the story has already gone viral. Captain Carter, thank you for being here. You've become quite the name, a hero, a leader, even a symbol of change. How does that feel? Aisha's expression barely shifted. She had expected the word. Symbol. It followed her everywhere now, like a shadow with good intentions. I don't think about being a symbol, she said calmly. Symbols fade. Systems remain. I'm here to fix the system. The studio went quiet, a hush, not scripted, not cued, just real. The host blinked, caught between admiration and reflection. And what does fixing the system look like? Aisha leaned forward slightly, her tone still gentle but edged with steel. It looks like hiring without bias, training without assumption, checking facts before checking skin tone. It's not complicated, just uncomfortable for the ones who benefited from silence. A murmur of approval rippled through the small audience behind the cameras. The host nodded slowly. You know, there's a clip of that day at Heathrow that still plays every hour online the moment your name was called over the loudspeaker. People say it gave them chills. Aisha allowed a faint smile. It gave me perspective. I didn't need the world to see me. I needed them to see what they've been ignoring. The host hesitated, glancing at her notes. Some people are saying your story is inspiring a new generation of pilots, especially young black women. What do you say to them? Aisha turned to face the camera directly, voice low but resonant. Don't chase permission, chase proficiency. The world will question your presence answer with performance. A collective exhale filled the studio. Even the cameraman lowered his head slightly, like he'd just witnessed something that mattered. The host smiled, genuine this time. That's powerful, Captain Carter. Aisha nodded. Powerful isn't the goal. Fair is. The red light above the camera blinked off-air. Crew members applauded softly. The host reached out, shaking her hand. That line's gonna live forever. Aisha chuckled under her breath. Let's hope the change does too. Outside, reporters waited behind glass, hoping for one more soundbite. But Aisha didn't stop. She walked through the lobby, out into the cool air. The city noise felt lighter than the studio's silence. Her driver opened the car door. Nia sat inside, tablet in hand. Interviews are trending again. 42 million views this time. Aisha buckled her seatbelt. Good. Maybe someone's listening now. The car pulled into traffic. Billboards glowed above. One of them showed her face, wings shining under the caption, Captain Carter redefining flight. She looked away from it, eyes on the skyline ahead. Redefining flight, she whispered. No, redefining fairness. And with that, the car disappeared into the city, steady, unhurried, unstoppable. The documentary aired on a quiet Sunday night. No hashtags, no countdowns, just a title fading into black. Captain Carter, The Quiet Rebellion. In her townhouse overlooking the Hudson, Aisha watched alone. No uniform, no cameras, just her and the soft hum of city lights spilling through the blinds. The television screen flickered, her younger self appeared, grainy training footage from years ago. A voiceover said, she was told she didn't look like a pilot, so she decided to look like progress instead. Aisha smiled faintly. The line wasn't hers, but it fit. Clips rolled of the Heathrow incident, the orange-suited woman yelling, the crowd, the confusion, the voice over the loudspeaker. Even now, she felt the chill of that moment, not from fear, but from the memory of being seen for the wrong reason. She muted the sound. Silence felt more honest. Her apartment was lined with models of aircraft, each one representing a milestone, a mission, a memory. On the desk sat a framed photo, her first solo flight. Her father holding up a sign that read, Fly higher than they expect. She whispered the words aloud, as if confirming them to herself. Higher than they expect. Her phone buzzed. A message from Nia. Nia, the dock's blowing up. Number Quiet Rebellion trending. You watching? Aisha. Yeah. Nia. They're calling you the voice of modern aviation. Aisha. Funny. I spent half my life being told to stay quiet. She put the phone face down, leaned back on the couch, and let the city noise fill the gaps the documentary couldn't. On screen, the narrator continued, Captain Carter changed not just policy, but perspective. Her legacy isn't in the flights she commanded, it's in the doors she opened. The image shifted to the three new pilots, Danielle, Lena, and Maya, standing at another ceremony, saluting before their first official flights. Each of them wore the same gold wings she'd pinned with her own hand. The documentary cut to an interview clip from one of them. When she walks into a room, it's not her rank that makes people straighten up. It's her calm. She doesn't need to raise her voice. She just raises the standard. Aisha's eyes softened. It wasn't pride that filled her chest. It was peace, the quiet kind that comes only after the storm has proven itself necessary. She turned off the TV. The room dimmed again, just the skyline blinking beyond her window. The city was still moving, planes slicing through the dark sky, lights pulsing red and white like distant heartbeats. Her gaze followed one of them until it vanished into cloud. She whispered into the stillness, "Keep flying steady." It wasn't clear if she was speaking to herself or to the next woman who'd need to. A knock at the door broke the silence. A courier, uniform neat, holding a sealed envelope. Delivery for Captain Carter. She opened it. Inside was a single note on Horizon Air letterhead. You're scheduled to inaugurate the company's first all-female flight crew next month. Congratulations, Captain. Aisha smiled, closed the envelope, and looked back out at the horizon. The sky outside was infinite, as always, indifferent, inviting, waiting. Back to work, she murmured. Morning light spilled across runway 18 like molten gold. Fog lifted slow and soft, revealing the silver hull of a new Horizon Air jet, its nose painted with one word in deep navy letters, Unity. Aisha stood at the base of the boarding stairs, cap in hand, uniform immaculate. Behind her were the three women she'd trained: Danielle, Lena, and Maya, each wearing their first captain stripes. They laughed quietly, nerves tucked beneath discipline. "Ladies," Aisha said, voice steady but warm, "today isn't about proving anything. It's about continuing everything." They nodded, taking the weight of that sentence like a vow. Inside the terminal, passengers watched through the glass. A few recognized her. Whispers rippled down the rows of seats. A teenage girl pressed her hand to the window and smiled. Her mother whispered, "That's her, Captain Carter." The intercom chimed, "Now boarding Horizon Flight 212, operated by our first all-female crew." Applause rose, small but heartfelt. Aisha climbed the stairs last, pausing halfway up. She looked back at the sunrise, painting the runway in amber and blue colors of endings and beginning. For a moment, she heard echoes. The woman shouting, the officer's demand, the voice calling her name, and then she heard something louder: silence, dignified and earned. At the top of the stairs, a maintenance worker saluted. "Congrats, Captain. World's watching again." Aisha smiled slightly. "Good. Let them see how normal this should be." Inside the cockpit, the air smelled like new leather and purpose. The seats gleamed, controls waiting. Maya slid into the captain's chair, fingers trembling just a little. "Still can't believe this is real." Aisha placed a hand on her shoulder. "Believe it before you fly it. That's the rule." Danielle called from the entryway. "Tower cleared us for departure." Aisha nodded. "Then let's make history look routine." As the engines roared to life, she stepped aside, letting Maya take command. The younger pilot's voice came through the comms, calm, confident. "Horizon 212, ready for takeoff." The plane rolled forward, gathering speed. From the terminal, passengers raised phones, capturing a moment that wasn't about fame anymore, it was about inheritance. Through the cockpit glass, Aisha watched the horizon tilt as wheels lifted from Earth. Her reflection merged with the sky beyond. No boundary, no question of belonging. At 30 feet, the plane broke the fog. At 300, it rose into clear light. The voice from air control echoed faintly in her headset. "Horizon 212, you're clear. Welcome to open skies." Aisha exhaled, eyes soft. "Copy that, the sky's open." She turned to her team, three women now commanding what once tried to confine them. Pride didn't look loud, it looked steady. Below, the airport shimmered ordinary again, but never the same. And as the plane climbed higher, sunlight spilled across the clouds like a curtain lifting on a new story. For the first time, the world didn't ask who belonged up there. It just made room.